Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're taking a look at GoCollect's hottest trending comics for the week of January 1st. That is right, we are in 2023, and we're starting the year off right with another GoCollect trending list. Now, for those who don't know, GoCollect puts out weekly articles that analyze the hottest selling comic books based on volume of sales and recent movement in the market. This trending list is a more curated list written by Matt Tuck. Before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do those things, I appreciate it. But let us get into this list here today. Of course, I will put a link in the description if you guys want to do your own reading, but let me break it down for you. And the first book we got to talk about is this one right here, an old friend of the YouTube channel. Of course, we're talking about New Avengers number 7, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 78th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 2005, written by Brian Michael Bendis, that would feature the first appearance of the superhero team known as the Illuminati. Now, you guys remember the Illuminati. We got them in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and this book about a year ago was one of the hottest books in the market. Well, how the mighty have fallen. You know how it is. Out of sight, out of mind with comic books in the comic book market, coupled with the fact that we've had such large corrections in the comic market overall, especially that of the modern age and the copper age. But this right here is still a really good book, in my opinion, and a very cool kind of, modern comic book. I mean, outside of all the MCU spec, the Illuminati is still a very cool team in the Marvel comic book continuity, and this is still kind of a fun book to own. I've definitely noticed it out there in the wild, being priced at good prices. And if you're somebody who has always sort of wanted this book or wanted, just to kind of collect the Illuminati team, I mean, this is definitely a great time to buy it. And I'm not even necessarily convinced that we're not going to see the Illuminati once again. So this is still a cool book, in my opinion, and definitely worth a pickup if you're somebody who actually wants it. Because if we look at the prices right here and we take a look at what they're selling for today, we can go down here to the 9.8s. We see that there are 768 on the census. Fair market value at only $100. 30-day moving is at 97. Can you believe it? Let's take a look at some of these recent sales here. We got a 99 fixed price on eBay. We got a 90 fixed price on eBay. That is how far this book has fallen. Even a $71 sale earlier in December on auction on eBay, peaking at around the almost $500 price point back in February of last year. That is a 5x drop off. So quite the fall for this particular book. And that really is probably one of the reasons why this book is showing up on the trending list. I mean, at this point, it is so cheap. I mean, how much more could it really fall? I mean, I suppose it could slice in half still and become a $30 book, which is basically the cost to send it into CGC anyways. But, at this point, around that $70, $90 range, of course, you can't really do much worse overall. And that's one of the reasons why this book is showing up on the list. Then, of course, being a 2005 book, you're not going to see it slabbed at the low grade. But when you go into eBay now looking for raw copies, you can even find them being sold around that $15 price point. All right, let's move on now to the fourth hottest trending comic of the week. And the fourth hottest trending comic of the week is a personal favorite of mine. But this one right here is Silver Surfer number 1, new to the list this week, now sitting in the 75th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1968, written by Stan Lee, and would be the big premiere issue, the first solo series for the Silver Surfer. Now, of course, you guys know the Silver Surfer, probably the most anticipated Marvel hero to be making his debut in the MCU. And there have been a lot of great Silver Surfer keys that have been moving out there in the market, including this one right here, which is the first solo title. This is also the origin of the Silver Surfer. It's the origin of the Watcher. And it's also the first appearance of Shia LaBeouf, who happens to be the Silver Surfer's love interest. But, with a lot of the prices pulling back, with a lot of prices correcting, I think one of the reasons why you're seeing this book on the trending list is simply due to the fact that now a lot of collectors are feeling comfortable with buying into this thing once again. For my monies, I think that this is still one of the great Silver Surfer books to own. I mean, arguably, you could say that this is in the top 2, certainly the top 3 of the character. And I would say that this is definitely the go-to big premiere issue. Of course, the 1968 book saw a lot of big premiere issues with characters like Iron Man and Captain America and Submariner. And I think that Silver Surfer and Iron Man are kind of the 1A, 1B. It does tend to be that the Silver Surfer book is more expensive in comparison, especially at the high grades, because it is that all black cover. And speaking of those grades, as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. 9.8s actually have 9 on the census, but there hasn't been a sale for quite a while. 9.6 I think is really interesting. 39 on the census, and there was a sale, 90 days back around the $45,600 range. This was a massive sale for a book like this coming out of the Silver Age, especially, in a month where there was a lot of correction in prices. That was back in November. But let's go down here to the 8.0 range, 346 on the census, fair market value is $2,500, 30-day moving right around that. And this is a very good graph to look at, kind of demonstrating, the rise and fall of this book where, we saw a slow and steady increase over the course of this book's history, a big surge up during 2021 and 2022, and now kind of where the prices are correcting back to, we're kind of back into the trend line overall. And then of course down here at the 4.0 range, $500 fair market value, 495 30-day moving, and similar looking graph to the 8.0 where you kind of have this book on a slow and steady increase. It explodes here in 2021, it pulls back down, and you see that the book is overall back in the trend line. And then of course down at the bottom, you could see this book slabbed at the low grade, but typically speaking, if you're trying to find a low grade raw copy, it's still going to run you around that $450 to $500 range. All right, let's move on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week, and the third hottest trending comic of the week is an interesting one, kind of a surprising book to show up on the list, but this one right here is Thor number 337, newsstand edition, up 40 spots, now sitting in the 50th slot, so the median book out there in the market. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1983, written by Walt Simonson, that would feature the first appearance of the character known as Beta Ray Bill. Now, you guys know Beta Ray Bill, one of the most beloved characters within the Thor mythos, and it's been speculated for many years that he was going to be making his MCU debut. Of course, we got the Easter egg of him in Thor Ragnarok, and people were thinking that maybe we were going to finally see Beta Ray Bill in Thor Love and Thunder, but we never really got that payoff. And so it sort of begs the question, like, when are we going to get this character, if in fact we are going to get him? Well, nobody really knows at this point, and that's really one of the reasons why this book continues to kind of trend up and then trend down and then trend up and then trend down. And specifically, it's interesting to talk about the newsstand edition. Now, this is a book that came out in 1983, and if you happen to see some of my other videos talking about newsstands, I did make mention that even books that, effectively are more printed in this era of newsstand are still more desired by collectors in the market. At least they're willing to pay that premium. And anecdotally speaking, if you do look at the sales, you do tend to find that newsstands sell less often or sell at that premium, even for this book right here. But what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about the newsstand versus direct edition thing? Maybe people like to buy the newsstand simply because they think they're protecting their investments. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's take a look at some of the values here. 9.8s have 79 on the census for the newsstand, which is a lot less than what you would get with the direct edition. Fair market value is $800, 30-day moving is $804, and this is a book that ever since they've been kind of calculating the values for this thing back in 2020, definitely shot up like other books in 2021 and has had its pullback, but where it's selling now is basically right around the prices that it was going for, slightly above that of 2020. Down here at the bottom, it's a 1983 book, so you won't see it slabbed too often at the low grade, but when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies of this thing, typically you could see them being sold around that $150 level. All right, let's move on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is a classic book right here. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 316, up 22 spots, now sitting in the 25th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1989, drawn by Todd McFarlane, and would feature the first full cover appearance of the character known as Venom. Now, I say first full cover appearance of Venom a little bit in jest. This is a book that is definitely celebrated out there in the market, and you would think that this would be like the first appearance of Venom or the second appearance of Venom or his first cover or whatever. It actually doesn't have any of those distinctions. It's just a key book that people love due to the cover art. I mean, I feel like this is signature Todd McFarlane right here at his best work when he was on the Spider-Man title. And this is just one of those books that I think brings the member berries for a lot of people. A lot of people love to collect this thing. And this is one of those books that, like a lot of the books in 2021 and 2022, was heavily spec'd on. And especially when we had the Venom 2 film, a lot of those Venom keys were absolutely going to the moon. And this was one of them. And now where prices are, a lot of the pullbacks happening in the market, I think a lot of people are thinking that this is a good book to jump back in on. Of course, we also had the Todd McFarlane signing where we were getting a lot of signed books back onto the market. So you would think that there would be a lot of Todd McFarlane movement. That could be one of the reasons why this book is showing up on the trending list. This is a great book to have on a slab, especially a gold slab with a Todd McFarlane signature. So you know that there were going to be a lot of sales. But as we dig into the numbers, let's take a look at some of the values here. 8,000 290 books on the census. 10.0s have 1 on the census. 9.9s actually have 10 on the census. 9.8s have 1,571. 30-day moving for that is 574. And this is going to be a graph that you guys are all too familiar with. You see that rocket ship, that jetpack shoot up all the way in early 2021 and shoot all the way back down to Earth right here. But it's still a book that sells for more today than it did sell in 2020. So very, very interesting, especially as we move forward into 2023. If we go into this recession, we'll definitely keep our eyes on if books are able to kind of hold that floor value above what they were selling for in 2020. And then of course, down here at the bottom, 1989 book, not going to see it slapped at the low grade too often. But when you go onto eBay looking for raw copies, typically this book still sells around that $150 to maybe even $200 range, depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the hottest trending comic of the week. And the hottest trending comic of the week is a classic Copper Age book right here. This one, of course, is Amazing Spider-Man number 365, up 19 spots, now sitting in the number 6 slot. The number 6 most bought and sold book out there in the market today. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 1992 that would feature that special hologram cover and would feature the first preview appearance or first appearance, however you want to slice it, of Spider-Man 2099. Now, as I'm sure you guys know, later this year, we are set to get Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to the Miles Morales animated film. And in that film, we've already seen scenes with Spider-Man 2099. So this book right here, ASM 365, and also Spider-Man 2099 number 1 have been books that have been heavily bought in the market, heavily spec'd on. Of course, with prices always fluctuating for these Copper Age books, you never really know what you're going to get in terms of the values of any given day. But we recently got that trailer, and ever since we did get that, a lot of these books have been moving a lot in the market once again, especially the Bagman book. But it seems like ASM number 365 is always going to be a book desired by collectors, always going to be one that people want to have in their collection. And this is definitely a really interesting book. I think this book is always going to hold the premium value on it over that of Spider-Man 2099, even though it's technically a preview appearance in this one. But this one right here is just kind of an iconic, hologram cover. It's like ASM, it's an ASM title, so this one is always going to be desired in the market. But as we dig into the numbers, let's take a look at some of the values here. 7,439 universal copies on the census. 9.8s have 22.75. Fair market value is $200. 30-day moving, 189. Another book that, again, has kind of yo-yoed up and down many times throughout its life cycle. You can see even back here in 2018, had kind of a spike up, then another spike up in 2020, then another spike up in 2021, and then it's kind of corrected back down to, all the way to the $200 level in 2022. And then recently in these last couple months, we've seen another little bit of a spike up due to the anticipation of the film. And that's going to be one of the things with this book. There's a lot of copies out there in the market. The prices are always going to fluctuate depending on, what's going on in pop culture, but a great book regardless, and currently sitting around that $200 price point. Now, it's very, very interesting. This is another book that has a newsstand edition, and the newsstand definitely sells for a massive, massive premium overall. Down here at the bottom, you're not going to see this book slabbed being a 1992 book at the low grade, but typically speaking, when you go into eBay looking for raw copies, you can find them at different price points, maybe sometimes around that $15 range, maybe sometimes around the $20 to $25 range, depending on the deal of the day and depending on the grade. Anyways, that's all for this video. Those were Go Collect's hottest trending comics for the week of January 1st. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video.